Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing after lunch? Are we awake? Woohoo! Ah, so how are you doing today, Mark?
I'm great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
fantastic.
Yeah. So Mark and I have been having some fascinating discussions about, we just met here at the conference, and you know, uh, this is going to be more of like a chat, but we would love to have the audience interact about personal branding. And really, in this day and age, there's no getting around needing to focus on that if you're going to have any type of meaningful business growth, because people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust, especially in this digital age and this AI age. Our world in just a few short years is going to be a lot different, and you're not going to know if something's real unless somebody's like sitting right next to you. What do you think about that, Mark?
Yeah, you started to see a lot of AI bots now, and you can't even tell. You have to watch it a second time sometimes to figure out whether it's real or not. So it's really important to think about your own personal brand and make sure that it is authentic and present your brand as you, because there's a lot of people that are actually using AI bots to be their brand, and I think it's a huge mistake because there's no authenticity to it, and in the end, that's who you are, right? So like you said, you're trying to build trust. So it's really always about, how do I build trust? How do I build engagement? And so I'm like a hybrid of a lawyer and a business guy and an entrepreneur. So it's been a journey to figure out what my personal brand should look like and how to build that up.
I I can relate with you on that because, as we have very similar backgrounds, attorneys, entrepreneurs, and as entrepreneurs, we want to do so many different things. But when you build your personal brand, what that allows you to do is, when people know, like, and trust you, they're going to be interested in anything that you have to say or have to sell, whether it's a product or service. I mean, think about brands in general. Like, think about the most addictive thing on the planet is this iPhone. When this came out in 2003, when my daughter was born, and if you're an Apple enthusiast, Steve Jobs like enthusiast, when you're loyal to a brand, literally you will, because your emotion and identity is attached to that, you will buy anything that that brand puts out and follow that brand till the day that you die. And it's no different with personal brands. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I mean, if anybody's read Simon Sinek, he's sort of, and those of us, I'm sure you read him as well. He's kind of like the evangelist of optimism, but also his golden circle of why is kind of, it really, it's why you need to create a brand, right? So basically just says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And he uses Apple as the ultimate example of a brand that has just they're not necessarily the best product. They haven't been the best products, but they always win because they created this ethos and a brand that you get excited about. What's more exciting than unboxing something new from Apple? It's great, right? So they built that brand, right? And Steve Jobs built his brand unintentionally for him, but we need to be more intentional about what we do. So I think for me, it's really been, how do I build a brand for myself that, resonates with people that watch what I do, right? So, and that's been a long journey. So I started doing content development and content creation on LinkedIn probably 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And, just putting yourself on camera, in front of the camera, doing video. And I started, all my content when I first started out was geared towards legal content, like trying to give business law advice, which is really hard to do in 60 seconds. And the other problem with giving legal advice is you have to be very careful. How far can you push it before you're saying something that somebody's going to listen to it and they're going to sue you for legal malpractice because they did what you said. So you have to kind of watch a lot of it. But it really, what it did was, it created, like, you realize, like, you start to see what actually functions online and where you get wins and where people are engaging with content. And it ended up being, the more business side content was much more in, engageable. But what it did do, just so you understand the sort of the power of like content marketing and the power of branding, as a lawyer, right? Which so most lawyers shy away from it. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to do any of it. And a lot of us don't want to be in front of cameras, right? With lights like this in your eyes, like all of it. But legal, as you know, is like it's usually 7 or 8 touch point marketing, right? That's kind of the standard, right? It takes you 8 touch points to get a customer, to get a client. I've taken that 8 point journey down to 2 because by the time I get a call or a contact for legal work, they've already engaged with a ton of my content. They've seen and heard me speak on, a plethora of topics. They know who I am, and if you, as I am right now, is as I am on all my video. There's no additional, like, there's no big personality, like, added to the videos. Everything is very much just me speaking on topics that, for 30 years of my career, I've learned and just sharing information. So once you get to that point, there's a lot of value in building that kind of brand, building that for yourself.
Absolutely. It's all about building that brand equity. And you touched on a lot of different points that apply not only to personal branding, but just branding in general. In that, building a personal brand sounds like it's all about you, but it isn't. It's about how can you serve your audience or your clients. And so knowing your audience is key in defining your avatar and knowing how you're going to, because nobody cares about how great you are. They care about how are you going to help me? What's in it for me? So you have to align your, content strategy and how you position yourself as an authority, as a trustworthy authority in your space to align with that. And also, it's really important to keep in mind that with any brand, there's different ways, and especially with a personal brand, there's different ways that you can get content out there. Some people don't want to be on camera. You don't have to. You can be a blogger. You can write things. You can speak at events or be on panels. You don't have to be like on YouTube or Instagram doing like content every day. There's lots of different ways that you can position yourself as an authority figure in your space. But bottom line, it's just so important to be authentic and knowing who you're serving and how you're going to serve them. Business, making money, generating income, money is just energy, and it's all about the value that you put out into the universe. That's going to come back to you if you're providing value. There's going to be somebody that needs that value. And we all, as human beings, have unique talents, strengths, and gifts. Every person on this planet, in my opinion, should have a personal brand. And no matter what their profession is, even if they're a W-2 employee, because especially, again, with this age of AI, like, how else are you going to really get to know, like, and trust somebody? People will spend all this time on their dating profiles for dating apps and things like that. But when it comes to commerce and business and your career, a personal brand is just, it's non-negotiable. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, or they're scared and they think, well, I'm not important enough to have a brand. I just, I just have a job, or I'm just starting my business. But everyone has something that they can teach to somebody else. Everybody does. To be an expert in something, you only have to be this much, 20% have more knowledge than the person behind you. So being authentic, you don't have to, like with the content creation. And Mark, if you check out his Instagram or his LinkedIn, he's got great content. I highly recommend you check it out. But he's being his authentic self, not worrying about this, like having to have this Hollywood production. I think people nowadays really appreciate if you're going to be doing live content in front of the camera, like on TikTok or Instagram or anything, or even LinkedIn. It's just about being authentic and answering questions and topics. And it's so easy to research these things, like what are people asking about, there's so many resources, especially with AI, that can help you develop content strategies and all of this. So
Yeah, I mean, maintaining authenticity while you're building your professional image is hard, right? It is because you don't want to fall down some of the traps that exist, and you want to build something that makes sense for people, and that they can relate to. So it was funny, like you mentioned, like not having big cameras. So one time, I do use a social media company to help me. I don't edit all my own video. It would take me forever. So, but they came, so they sent a crew to shoot for a day. So usually I do, a lot of people do content different ways. I do sort of mass build content. So one day a month I will shoot essentially 30 videos that are used throughout the month. And, we kind of deploy them throughout the month. But the one time they sent a full video crew, like they came to my house with, lighting and three video cameras. And it was like, it was this giant production. And the footage is beautiful. Like I look great in it. It's like I'm like, this is great. Like, look how good I look. This is phenomenal. And it was the worst performing content that I ever put out. Like I had a whole month where the content didn't do anything. Like nobody would engage with it. Finally, somebody texted me. They're like, dude, what's with the big production stuff for your production video work? I was like, I don't know. They just thought it was something interesting. They're like, don't do that. And so I stopped doing that completely. We shoot everything with, usually just one vertical, one horizontal camera, maybe two camera, and most of it's shot on iPhone or on Samsung. We will use some good cameras just to make sure that some of the video is cleaner, but we really keep it. You got to keep it really simple.
Yeah,
And
it can be so simple
yeah,
in terms of the equipment and the tech stack and all of that. And like you said, I've seen that backfire so many times where people try to make it into this huge, like I said, Hollywood production, and it just comes off as so inauthentic, fake. You're not a Hollywood celebrity. You're not, we're not, Steven Spielberg over here. So, and like I said, I love your content, and it's authentic. And yes, you can hire video editors and all that because that's a total pain in the ass. I highly recommend once you start building your personal brand, investing back into it and hiring people. You'd be amazed at the talent you can find, especially overseas, whether it's in the Philippines or South America, all over the world, to do all kinds of editing and things like that that are just save you time so that you can just focus on the content. Another great content, like way to get your content out there for your brand is through podcasting. And I had a podcast in the past. I'm going to be starting up another one in a whole different industry. But podcasting has so many benefits. It's just as simple as getting on the mic and talking, interviewing people, asking questions like we're doing, having thoughtful conversations about topics that people want to hear about. And it really instantly establishes you as an authority figure, which allows you to also reach out to other authority figures that you feel like are unattainable to say, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? Or, can I interview you? So it's a really great way to create content where you're not always the one having to create the content. You just invite guests and you have conversations, basically. And as long as you're naturally curious, it's pretty easy to do. What do you think about podcasting, or do you have other recommendations?
Yeah, and podcasting has gotten, I think it's probably the number one way to push your brand right now, because social is so crowded, and the algorithms change pretty much every day, and every time you think you figured something out, it goes and the algorithm changes, and you lose traction. You're not getting as much engagement. You got to play with it again. But podcasting, it just gives you so much content. There's so much you can do to repurpose. You have to be multi-channel right now. I mean, it is building a brand there's a lot of work to it. To getting if you want to do it right. I think I'm doing it right, but I don't really know.
I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's
Yeah.
just, it's iterative, and it's an investment. It's an investment in you, in your
Yeah.
business, and your business growth. And enjoy the ride. It's not like a marathon.
Yeah,
No, it's not a sprint.
fast
It's a
reaction.
marathon.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
it's definitely a marathon. I mean, I've done a lot of podcasting. I get, I'm on, maybe done 20 or so, where you get on you can get on people's podcasts.
Oh yeah, that's another great thing. You don't have
very
to have your own
easily. You don't have
podcast.
to have your own. You can just, And there's so many things you can do right now to support your own brand and your own, and not just personal, but your company, you know, without using professionals. If you just get somebody to coach you, right? So having a coach is huge. You don't necessarily need somebody to do a lot of it, right? So like PR is like I believe in PR. Like a lot of people don't believe in it as much anymore because and there's just so much pay for play now, which there didn't used to be. But you can do a lot of your own research and get PR on your own all day, right? I do
Absolutely.
it all the time, right? It used to be called Help a Reporter Out, HARO. They just got bought, but it's still the same thing. You can search it, and you can just set question, what you want to hear about, what you want, and you'll see reporters asking for information. They just want to find somebody to answer the question, and that's somebody that's an quote unquote expert in a field. So, you know, the first time I did it, I was like, oh, look at that, I'm on MSN. I had no idea. It was just I answered a question, and I've done it a bunch of times, and it's
You're
a
giving
really,
away very valuable secrets that I usually charge clients for here, Mark.
but it is really. There's not a lot of people here, so I think we're good.
But all to say, there are so many ways that you can build your authority. What Mark's talking about right now is really building your backlinks and SEO strategy so that when somebody types your name into Google, they're like, wow, this person's like, they're an expert. They're a thought leader. So getting like into whether it's press releases or articles on major news outlets or media, things like that. But I would like to kind of talk about now, we've been talking a lot about building your personal brand using social media and SEO and things like that. But there's off internet ways to build your personal brand, which I love even more, and the power of networking and going to conferences like this. So how do you use networking to help build your personal brand?
Yeah, so I'm very strategic in what I go to and when I go, just because I don't really have a lot of time, like, just to be honest. I'm running 9 businesses at this point, so it's just not like I have to figure out where I'm going to be. So and I like to pick things where networking doesn't feel transactional. It has to be a place. So like, I'll go to a group. If I go to a group and I feel like it's transactional, I'll never go back. I'll just cut it off immediately, because I feel like all you're doing is trading business cards and you're not getting to know anybody, and all they want is, oh, hey, let's meet next week. And every time you do that, you just wasted another hour of your life. So I like to try to find places where you can have really meaningful conversations and engage with people. So I tend to like smaller venue stuff, but that's just me personally. I do better in it. But while I might have a camera like that, but I don't like to do a lot of like conference networking. To me is really hard. Like it exhausts me because I'm not cut out for it.
Yeah, I don't see that at all. We met today, and you seem like a pro. And I was going to use us as an example of we just met. I mean, we connected before today's talk, but we have so much in common. We would have never met had we not been at the Field Conference. And so, I personally love conferences, but to your point, you do have to be very strategic. And there's a fine line between being strategic and not being transactional, because we only have so much time and so many hours in the day. And so when you're at a conference, it can be absolutely overwhelming because can be thousands of people and like, who do you talk to? But when you start talking to people, like, make it all about them and ask them about them, and then you get to know pretty quickly, okay, do we have synergies? Is this worth, and it's not that they might not be a great person to be friends with, but there are ways to really be able to, I had one woman come up to my booth and she was trying to pitch me on all her services, and literally it was like cutting into my time to do work and be at my booth and everything. And I just very politely, and she was fine with it, I just very politely said, it was lovely to meet you. I would love to connect you on with LinkedIn. I have to prepare for this panel. And so it's very easy when you're at a conference to actually cut it off and be like, you don't say we don't have anything in common, goodbye, but just be like, you just got to get a sense, is this somebody that we can actually we have synergies. We can do business together. So Mark and I met, we had some lunch, and we're talking, and we definitely have synergies that we're going to explore after this conference. So it's just a way of communicating, representing yourself, which goes back to, when you introduce yourself, giving your elevator pitch. I'm sure you've all heard that term. I hate that term. That was kind of antiquated, but just introducing yourself authentically and focusing on how do you help people, not, I used to be, and I made a lot of mistakes, but I used to be, and on my LinkedIn, I'm Kellyanne. I'm a lawyer. I'm an entrepreneur. I sold a 7-figure company. I am a podcaster. I'm a thought leader. I'm a speaker. Me, 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 me. Like, nobody cares about that. They care about how you can help them. So, like, on your LinkedIn profile, make sure your profile shows how you help people. And then in your bio, you can give all your accolades. I'm a lawyer. I'm a this. I'm a that. Blah, 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 blah. What do you think?
No, I think that's great advice. I mean, I think, the couple people that are in here are getting some real good stuff. So, it's we added somebody. Nice, thank you. But I think it is really, there's so much interesting stuff that you can do with your own personal brand. From networking to, your socials to everything. And it is like I do enjoy it, right? Part of you feels like it's a little egotistical. You have to kind of get past that. You say, well, what do I really have to offer? And then you think about it and you say, well, hey, I do actually have a lot of stuff to offer. If you've been in business for 30 years and a lawyer and doing this stuff, you just know things, right? Wanting to share them is actually, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So you have to get to that in your life. You have to get to the point where you can say to that, hey, I know that I can help people. And that's really what I want to do. My entire ethos is, I left corporate America to help small business. And I only work with small and mid-sized businesses and startups. I don't work with large businesses. I have no interest in it. I don't want to work in that environment anymore, so I don't do it. And I can offer a lot more value and support a small business way more than I can support a Fortune 500 company.
And that's something that we aligned with. I'm the same way. Startup life and helping entrepreneurs and startups, and it's not only is it more exciting, but just you really feel like you're making a difference in somebody's life versus corporate America. But to get back to like the point of like not sounding egotistical, again, when you look at it from the standpoint of how can you serve somebody, and you would be doing them a disservice if you didn't let them know how you can serve them. And believe me, somebody out there needs your product or service. That doesn't mean that you shove it down people's throat and you lead with, I've got this product or service and I want to sell you. That would be transactional and disingenuous. But asking them questions, being a listener more than being a talker, asking them about their problems and problems that you can solve. Like, business and entrepreneurship is all about solving people's problems and pain points. So once you ask them enough questions and you find out what their pain points are, if you have a solution to that and you build a relationship and they know, like, and trust you, then why wouldn't they want to do business with you?
No, I think that's great. And one of the things I was thinking about was, like, what about your personal image, your wardrobe? All of it it's all part of it, right? It all becomes part of your personal brand. Like, I have this thing for socks, right? So I always, because if you're wearing a suit or something, you're boring no matter what you do. Your tie can be interesting. You might put a handkerchief on, but a suit is a suit. So I always wear funky socks and funky laces. It's kind of a thing. People know me for that, and they're always like, "Hey, what socks you have on today?" So it became like a thing. Like, it's part of my personal brand. Like, what do you think about that?
I love that. And definitely presenting yourself in a way that appeals to your target audience. I mean, it's different if you're, Gen Z on TikTok versus at a professional event. But again, knowing your audience, I'm in the business, entrepreneurship, lawyer world, so I dress professionally. One of my little signatures is I always wear headbands. Mistakenly, people always think I'm wearing a tiara, but no, it's just a headband. But that's like one of my little signature things. But it always, and I never started wearing the headband so that people would notice me. But I always get noticed for my headband by women mostly. Like, that's such a cute tiara or whatever. I'm like, oh, thank you or whatever. So similar to the socks and like like your colorful little handkerchief there. It's just, you're obviously your physical
Hmm.
way you present yourself is very important, and that it aligns with, I mean, obviously you're not going to come here and be on stage and be in schleppy and sweatpants. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, it's obvious, but you want to keep that cohesive and consistent, but also different environments. Like I do so many different things and talk about, I help people optimize their business and their life. So I'm on the lifestyle side. I might be traveling somewhere, so I'll be in a, at the beach or whatever. I won't be dressed like this, but it's all about tailoring it to the, the situation and the audience.
Yeah, so like I've noticed one of the things we found in my content was when I would wear a jacket, the content would underperform. As soon as I took the jacket off, or if I put a hoodie on, and I look a little, I'm not gonna make myself look that much younger. I'm in my 50s. It's not happening. But you just to try to bring
Like
you become,
relatable, right?
you become more relatable. The jacket, it was like, oh, you're not relatable. You're too professional. So so there's a fine line
What's
of
the setting? We're here at a
yeah.
conference. You're wearing the suit, but yeah, on in your content, like if you were wearing that, it would
Yeah,
look like silly.
it doesn't work at all. So I noticed that like that was one of the because I was always like, oh, I'll always I want to look professional because I want to be professional. I don't want my content it's not like I'm doing fun TikTok, right? I'm not dancing. Well, I mean I have a personal one for that, but I don't tell anybody about that one.
That raises a good point. Yesterday we had a panel on the role of humor in marketing. So there's and it was a great panel discussion, and we so many jokes were told. One of them was I brought up a point about the discussion was whether humor is always appropriate, like for any brand. Obviously not. Like if you're a funeral home, for example, doing marketing, you're not going to be using humor. And then one of the panelists said, well, actually, a fun commercial for a funeral home where, try our funeral home, everybody's dying to get in. And anyway, humor, I think, can be, if appropriate to your audience, can be a great way to market yourself and make you more relatable. And yesterday we just talked about, humor, raising your dopamine levels. It makes you more relatable. It makes people like you, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I could totally see you in the content that I've seen you do so far, like, get a little crazy sometime, maybe incorporate some of that personal side. Like, it doesn't have to be all business when you're doing your business content. Like, it can be, like my hobby is I like to dance. And, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean I use some of it. It's not a lot of it. You just kind of sprinkle it in. But yeah, people have to know that you have fun, right? That you're not all.
And the channel is important. Instagram, TikTok, it's okay.
Yeah.
LinkedIn,
Yeah, you kind of cut it off, see where you want to put it. But what about mentors or coaches or branding experts that you've used other than yourself? But who do you follow? Is there anybody you follow that you say?
Well,
like,
my
this is somebody that's
favorite
great?
and my proudest picture on my Instagram feed is meeting and getting to have an intense conversation with Gary Vee. If you know who Gary Vee is, he's a very famous entrepreneur who built, to me, like the most iconic personal brand, all based on being an entrepreneur and a marketer and a hustler. He's one of my favorites in terms of his personal brand presence. And most of the thought leaders that I follow are in the entrepreneurship space. Yes. Okay. And so Gary Vee, I love Lewis Howes. I love Ty Lopez. He's more of a digital marketer entrepreneur. But the thing that these people have in common is they all, like, in my industry, and the branding and marketing, digital marketing and personal branding and all of that, is like they just are so authentic. Like Gary Vee curses left and right, like fuck fear and da da da. And I mean, this guy's like he's world famous. So, and that works for his audience, So, but it just shows you like that he can be his real self, and he's been doing this for what, like 30 years or 20?
If you don't know Gary Vee was like, he started wine on the internet. He had the first YouTube channel for for wine. His father's wine store in North Jersey, where I'm
Yeah,
from.
he's from Jersey,
Yeah,
but
he's a
he's
Jersey
he's
guy.
so relatable. I
Yeah.
mean, when I met him at they call it VCon, huge conference in LA last summer, he literally like made time to just like talk to different people, and like he's so relatable, even though he's like so famous, and so he's my favorite. How about yours?
Yeah, he's probably my favorite as well. I mean, it's kind of where I started, like watching like how do you build a brand. I mean, if you watch him, he built it from online from the beginning. You can
That was
you can
back when we didn't have any
yeah,
of
but
this stuff.
yeah,
like-
nothing was, it wasn't like it is today.
Are there any questions from the audience? Have a couple minutes left. Let me make sure I understand your question. Are you asking how do you keep on top of industry knowledge, or how do you keep on top of how to build your personal brand and marketing and such? Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? I mean, for one thing, congratulations, that's very impressive. Number two, the second you get out of here, you got to go take those offers, because, I mean, imagine people type your name into Google, your clients, they want to type your name into Google and see who you're all about but don't know you, and they see that you've spoken at some of these events or venues. Like, they're like, wow, this woman is an expert. Like, I want to hire her or work with her, you know? So yeah, I mean, and the fact that you're just like getting these offers and not having to go, I mean, that's amazing. So absolutely.
Yeah, lifelong learning. Always take on classes.
Always be learning.
Always be learning. Never stop. I mean, obviously, you gotta figure out whether or not it fits in your schedule and the cost of it. But almost always, it'll pay back to you.
And I want to just leave off with one more thing. I've always believed that, and I've been really fortunate throughout my life, even like through high school and college, is you should always have a mentor. I mean, you don't have to just have one, several, and you'll have different mentors as you go on, and you should always be a mentor. Have a mentor and be a mentor. It's so important, because there's always something you can learn from somebody, and there's always somebody you can teach. So pay it forward.
100%.
Well, thank you, everybody.